Hey, what's up everyone? This is Silver Slayer. Welcome back for today's video. We are going to be talking about the amount of gold that Donald Trump owns. I found a really interesting article. It is from 2015, so it's a little old, but I'm sure the amounts are a lot higher now, but it's still very important and educational subject, especially on the second part of the video where he shares his thoughts on bringing back the gold standard and what it would take. So I'm going to be sharing his, gold stash and also going into that subject as well. So stay tuned if you want to get into both topics. And also, if you do enjoy this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for content like this. I talk about all sorts of different stuff, including, the economy, the gold, and silver educational stack videos, silver discussions, and lots of different, types of things around precious metals. So anyways, we can get into the article. I will also post a link to both articles in the description of this video if you want to check them out for yourself. So this says, how much gold does Donald Trump own? Kitco News. Gold's growing downtrend has not endeared a lot of investors to the precious metals market. Apparently, the Donald fan is Donald is a fan of the yellow metal. It's talking about Republican presidential candidate, now President Donald Trump, submitted his financial statement to the Federal Elections Commission, listing his assets and liabilities. According to the information, he owns between $100,000 and $200,000 in gold. Like I said, it's probably a lot higher now, especially since back then I think gold was a little more expensive, and right now, we're seeing very low prices. The gold spot prices, really low right now. It's around $1,200 last time I checked. But even more impressive, his gold holdings were reported on page 36 of the 92 pages that made his disclosure statement. What is interesting is that his holdings appear to be in physical gold, which I actually I knew. I've checked out. I know he bought some land from Apmex. I know he owns land that Apmex is built on, and I've seen some stuff about him owning physical gold before. But they're talking about they're surprised he owns physical gold bullion, probably bars, lots of, the actual, kilo bars or something in a vault, but not the shares of gold-backed exchange, trade funds, nor futures contracts. A lot of people, they buy gold, but they own it, but they have a bank or a huge vault or something store their gold, and if they wanted to pick it up or get it, shipped to them potentially, then they could, or futures contracts, etc. But they're surprised that he owns the physical gold, the physical asset, which I always do. I always I recommend doing, because if you don't hold it, if you don't have it, you don't own it, especially if there's a crisis or anything could happen, and you don't really know who's in charge or whatever the case is. I definitely recommend owning it yourself. But anyways, it says, of course, his gold holdings are minuscule compared to his overall wealth, which the FEC documents at 1.3 billion. And however, this figure is misleading. Candidates only provide a dollar range, with the top category being over $50 million. So it is really interesting to see that they're surprised about this. A lot of people don't understand precious metals to the range that actual stackers do, But anyways, I thought this was a really interesting article. There also, I'll read some other facts. Despite the actual amount of his net worth, document shows extremely diversified investment portfolio, which I'm not surprised. Every investor, or serious investor, or at least smart investor, diversifies. Diversification is always key. But they're talking about his total $70 million include a variety of blue chip stocks: Apple, Bristol Myers, Squibb, Caterpillar, AT&T, JP Morgan, and Chase. This is a lot, obviously old news. This is from 5 years ago, so a lot has changed. But it was interesting to see someone sharing some actual numbers. I'm sure these numbers are probably quadrupled by now, his holdings in gold. I remember when people were went to his signing or whatever after he got elected, people were actually bringing their gold bars for him to sign, right, put his signature on their gold bars, which is pretty cool, because people are aware of this. Every smart investor does invest in precious metals, in my opinion. That's a very loose statement to say, but anyways, I'm going to go into the interesting part of this video, though. That was interesting, but this is the real subject. This is the meat and potatoes of this. This is where he's talking about the gold standard. If you don't know what the gold standard is, It was something that was used. It hasn't been used since the 1970s, but in the last couple of years, there's been some speculation on that President Donald Trump could bring it back. This article is from 2018. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's September 2018. So this is a newer article. Rumors that the gold standard could return center largely on positive comments Trump has made. The president said it would be wonderful to bring it back, and a number of his advisors think so too, and others have also expressed the support of the idea. But could the U.S. really return to the gold standard? What would it mean if Trump brought this back? Read on to learn what the gold standard, blah, blah. So I made a video about this before. I forget what the title was called, but I was sharing my opinion on if the gold standard could be realistic in today's economy, with our financial situation being so far in debt, and just the way that, we're becoming a cashless nation now. There's more cashless nations now than ever. Everything is, digital. We're in a digital age. Swiping a card, people don't even really have dollar bills anymore. It's more all, from your phone or your credit card or something. And or even with cryptocurrency. So I made a video sharing my opinion on this, and it was really interesting to read this article because it goes against basically what I was saying, but I only because I didn't think that someone would even fix the idea that will even try to jog this idea around in a realistic way. We can always, theorize or whatever, but this is an actual subject that they're talking about potentially making a a reality, which is really interesting. So it's talking about the gold standard is a monetary system where the value of a country's currency is linked directly to gold. Countries that use the gold standard set a fixed price at which to buy and sell gold, and then use that fixed price to determine the value of their currency. So they're backing it with intrinsic value. So nowadays, our money is basically worthless. It's there's no real value attached to it. Back in the day, the money was backed by gold, which meant it was backed by something with actual value. It's actually valuable. So if you're trading in your fiat currency, it's backed with something that actually has value. But once we took away the gold standard, now it's backed by a promise that that dollar bill is worth that much, but there's no real value behind it because it's just a promise basically. So you could see how, especially more and more dollars get pumped and impregnated, and hyperinflation, but also the amount of debt we're in. It's just a gap. A gap is growing farther and farther by the second. You could check out usdebtclock.org, where there's never a solution to this problem. There has to be a new financial system in place to even try to fix this, and this is jogging the idea of the gold standard. Anyways, the gold standard was first introduced in Germany in 1871. By 1900, most developed nations, including the U.S., were using it. The system remained popular for decades, with governments worldwide working together to make it successful. But when World War I broke out, the system became too difficult to maintain. Changing political alliances, higher debt, and other factors led to a widespread lack of confidence in the gold standard. So they're just talking about the gold standard was ended. What replaced the gold standard? That's obvious fiat currency. Whatever. So this is talking about what Trump said about the gold standard. While it's perhaps not common knowledge, Trump has been a long fan of the gold standard. In fact, as Sean Williams of the Motley Fool points out, Trump has been interested in gold since at least the 1970s, when private ownership of gold bullion became legal again. He reportedly invested in gold aggressively at the time, buying the precious metal about 185 per ounce and selling it between 787. So that's really good prices. So, he got in really cheap and sold out at similar prices that you see today, But since then, Trump has specifically praised the gold standard and often quoted from 2015 GQ interview that ranges from marijuana to man's buns. Trump says the system bringing back the gold standard would be very hard to do, but boy, would it be wonderful. Like I just mentioned before, it would be a very tricky thing just because how different our monetary system is in place today. And especially people don't like change, especially when it comes to a monetary system or people's money. People don't like change. They want security, they want consistency, and they want something that they know works, even though people don't even, they think today's monetary system is working. That a lot of people aren't educated on the real issue of our financial crisis we're in, and people don't even know about the gold standard. People don't even know about constitutional silver at that, you know. But anyways, he said we'd have a standard on which to base our money. In a separate interview from the same year, he also says we used to have a very, very solid country because it was based on the gold standard. Now, here's the video where he's mentioning all this stuff. You guys can check it out from the link I post. But he says, aside from that, Trump hasn't said much about the gold standard, but some believe actions speak louder than words. And if that's the case, there are a few things he's done that are well worth considering. Trump has surrounded himself with a number of advisors who hold extreme, even fringe ideas about the monetary policy. At least six have spoken favorably about the gold standard. Uh, so that's, you know, something that's really interesting. I do know about the APMEC situation as well. Another supporter of the gold standard is saying we're in a better position we've ever been in a lifetime as far as talking about serious changes to the monetary system and talking about gold. That is really interesting news. So there's also this part of the article. I'll try to skim through it very, you know, quickly, just, you know, for the sake of the video. Not I don't want it to be too long, but you know, this is talking about what would it take to return to the gold standard, which this could be a whole video itself, you know. But they're talking about large economists agree that moving to a lower key version of the gold standard in 1933 was a big reason why U.S. emerged from the Great Depression, and believe that a return would be a mistake. But if Trump did decide to go through with it, what would it take? Due to trade, money supply, and the global economy, the rest of the world we need to go back to the gold standard as well. Why? Because otherwise, countries use the U.S. dollar could stand with their hands out asking for their dollars to be exchanged for gold, including debtors like China and Japan, to which the U.S. owes a large chunk of its $21.6 trillion national debt. Now it's around $31 trillion, or no, you know, it is around. I think it's $23 trillion now. Last time I checked, we are in debt. But that is true. There's so much trade going on with China, especially China, that if we go back to a gold standard, how would we, you know, trade with them? You know, it has to be universal. It has to be transparent. That's why I always talked about Bitcoin, you know, because it's like Bitcoin is like everyone speaking the same language in a monetary fashion. You know, it's everyone in the world uses Bitcoin. It's not like the US dollar or the yen. You know, it's all universal, and which is really interesting. It's really, you know, beneficial. And it's instant transactions worldwide with zero to little fees. So anyways, that means the US dollar would be severely devalued, causing more inflation. And since the global trades resellers in the US dollar as a reserve currency, trade would go to a grinding halt. Conversely, returning to the gold standard, keeping the gold price low, would cause deflation. So that's interesting. There's more on this, but for the sake of the video, you know, you guys can check this article out. I'll post this in the description as well. I thought this was a really interesting topic. What do you guys think about this? You know, leave your comments down below. Also, make sure to like this video if you thought it was educational or entertaining. You know, I try to make switch up my content a little bit. You know, try to switch it up from always just talking about, you know, core stacking strategies and stuff. I want to talk about some fun stuff, you know, some entertaining stuff, you know, try to jog your brain, you know, spark new conversations and new thoughts and ideas. But anyways, this was Silver Slayer. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content like this. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.